button. All right, I think we're good, right?
Yep, I think we're live.
Zach, good morning to you. Happy Friday. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Great, man. Okay, well, that's one way to start. You could freeze to start us off. That's one way to start.
Oh, shoot, is it frozen?
There you go. You're back.
Oh, okay, good.
We
I'm saying,
figured.
interesting vibes.
Go ahead.
Still job not finished with the Ravens. They didn't get the Super Bowl, but it's a weird feeling because you want to celebrate, obviously, but it still does hurt a little bit.
So I was gonna say I was trying to add some more structure to our show here. Try to figure out how to keep us on track. So I had a couple topics I wanted to run through, but I really wanted to go deeper into the Lamar. I guess Lamar the person more than anything else because it's harder as you get older to develop like fandom, right? For a guy that ends up being the same age as you or sometimes even younger. So for your age bracket, right? Lamar's a couple years older than you. Walk me through exactly what is it about Lamar's story? Because everybody knows the football story. I think that's kind of played out. But what is it that like drew you to him? Because there's so many guys. So personally, just walk me through why such a big fan of Lamar and what it means to you personally that, he's a two-time MVP.
I mean, everything about how he carries himself. It's the way that he's always humble. He's always, putting others before himself. Even when he talks about his teammates in his speech last night, one of the first people he's thanking, and he's like, my offensive line. It's not my MVP speeches where the offensive line gets a shout out. So he's someone who throughout his career, he's obviously always been doubted. He's had that underdog, stigma around him his whole career, especially going into the NFL. And it was, I think that really kind of made me such this big fan is like there were so many people that doubted him and said, he should switch to running back. He should switch to wide receiver. What's he doing playing quarterback? Where it's like, I want to see this guy succeed. I want to see this guy do well and go and prove people wrong.
What do you think was the main reason he was doubted? Like, if you had to dig deep into it, what do you think the reason is?
I think it's because he plays the game differently than everyone else. At the time, it was still Tom Brady. When he came in the league, Tom Brady was still in New England winning, championships. And we still hadn't really gotten completely into this mobile quarterback era yet. So I think immediately it was just something different. I think it was, people genuinely didn't think that a guy who ran as much as he did or, put his body on the line like he does, every drive, they didn't think that could last the way it has. And they didn't think he could be successful doing that. And that is why I enjoy watching him so much and seeing him do the things he does, because it's what people said he wouldn't be able to do at this point in his career.
Do you remember the story his freshman year at Louisville? I think it was one of the first practices in the spring, and Petrino, the coach, had him do something at receiver, and mom ended up calling. Do you know that story?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's where
another thing. His mother is it's incredible.
So that's, to me, there's two things about Lamar that are like taboo to talk about, especially around here during contract time, that is the most interesting. The first is the representing, right? So everybody, I think is aware that his mom represents him. So the logic is, if I can get the same amount of money with my mom representing me instead of an agent, why wouldn't I do that, right? So here's the problem with that. We cannot, and when I say we, I would be speaking for agents, owners, anybody that is affiliated with making money off the NFL. We cannot have the best player in the NFL be extremely likable, have I don't know when he met his wife. Is he married or just longtime girlfriend?
Yeah, I think it's longtime girlfriend.
Clean cut, wants to work with kids. That's fine. That's Patrick. But then you just have to sign to one of these agents. Like you got to be part of the agency. That's how it works. And if you're not going to do that, it's not the biggest deal in the world if just Lamar Jackson does it. But what do you think every 11-year-old is now going to do? What do you think every 15-year-old is now going to do? Right. So they're watching the best player be completely clean. Well, I think the worst thing he did, which was, totally bad.
He got
But with,
speed. I think he got speeding. I think he
right,
got
Instagram Live, no seatbelt on.
yeah.
God, I wish that was the worst thing I did. Right, so
Yeah, and I my my that sorry. My that's one of my favorite stories because his mother actually grounded him and he was in his
really,
MVP season. Yeah, during his MVP season, he was grounded actually, and he was not able to
I
drive to
did.
the practices or games. So that's why Hollywood Brown used to drive him to practices and games because his mom took his car after after that incident. She
That's
said
hilarious.
he had to focus on the NFL. That's what I think I love about especially their relationship is Lamar really is still like a kid in the NFL. You know, he's winning MVP, but he was grounded because he sped with his car, and his mom's like, "Well, now you lost that privilege."
And so it's to me that's why Lamar is hated professionally. I think when you go personally, it's so easy because he's not the only black quarterback. He's not the only one that has a single mom, but he is the only one that is taking money and redoing the paradigm of representing yourself. And the Ravens gave in. I was really thinking about like why the Ravens gave in ultimately because Bishotti was not supposed. Like I think it was the wishes of the rest of the owners to just not give in.
Mhm.
So ultimately, why he
Yeah,
gave in, I can't wait. I'm assuming that's maybe a post Lamar retirement. When Bishotti's doing his farewell tour, his legacy of
yeah,
everything I've accomplished, it'll be interesting because I think he deserves an enormous amount of credit for allowing Lamar to break the paradigm. Because truthfully,
yeah,
it was very dangerously close to like we're just not going to do this because the rest of the NFL,
yeah,
because the Falcons were like, you know what, we've analyzed everything and we think Desmond Ritter is definitely the best answer. Washington analyzed everything, and so that's not what happened. What happened was, do we really? Not that we want to give him the guaranteed money. Do we really want Mom to represent the best players in football? If Roquan wants to represent himself, he's a linebacker. It's kind of a one-off but we can't have Lamar do it. And so for Bishotti to pull the trigger on it is one of the more under told stories, probably because by design, I guess he just doesn't want to talk about it. But I'm
mhm,
curious as we kind of move forward, like, you know, I don't want to make the whole podcast about this, but why, if you're the best player now and you have a competent mother, father, cousin, uncle, if Lamar's going to pull it off, I mean, really, why do you need an
yeah,
agent? Like, what would be the point of having an agent?
yeah. And I think it is funny because it's like Lamar wasn't the first person to represent himself, but like you said, Roquan represents himself. It's a linebacker. It's not the MVP of the league going to make the biggest contract in his NFL history at the time. It's not him representing himself. So when other players have done this, the Richard Shermans, I believe Ed Reed, it's not necessarily, talked about as much because it's not the biggest money.
Let
But
me
like you said, now these kids are seeing Lamar Jackson go out there and it's like, wait, if he's representing himself and he can do this and get all this money himself and he doesn't need these agencies to go in and do this for him, it is going to be interesting to see how this changes,
it
contract negotiations and
and
stuff.
the last time this happened, and I don't know, not to make fun of you, we'll get to your birthday, but I don't know how old you were when this happened. But when Rich Paul, LeBron's best friend, said, "I'm going to go to school," and well, LeBron doesn't have a mom or a dad capable of being an agent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is
Yeah.
I'm going to go to school, and then I'll just be the agent. And nobody, I mean, from the media, other agents, they just kept trashing him and trashing him. Do you remember Tristan Thompson getting like $80 million by the Cavs?
Yep.
Okay. So it was a couple flexes where, but from a business standpoint, from at the age now where all I do is work with kids, I'm like, listen, only one of you needs to really make it as far as whether it's an invention, whether it's being an athlete, whether one of you is a
Yeah.
genius. I don't know, but the rest of you, like whatever, whoever else is in the crew, like figure out something to contribute. So for Rich Paul,
Mhm.
just like thinking about that, because you and I both like
Yeah.
flamed out after what high school, ninth,
Oh
10th
yeah.
grade. So he's the same way. He's like, man, I'm never gonna
Yeah.
make it playing basketball, but my best friend's gonna make it. And I think those
Yeah.
stories, if you go and read like some of the things that were said, I think the thing that stands out the most was Phil Jackson calling it a posse, and implying that you're not dealing with business professionals. And I don't think it
Yeah.
was a racial thing. I think people miss the point. They're like, oh, it's a racist thing. It's like, no, it's a money thing. They're messing up
Yeah.
everybody's money by saying, well, I'll just have my best friend represent me. So the Lamar Jackson story, the conspiracy in me wasn't Taylor Swift. It was like they can't have 2 weeks of Lamar and his mom. So it's a shame that he couldn't get it done because it really wasn't as much as it was
Yeah.
pass interference on Isaiah Likely. It really wasn't the refs. But it was great for Lamar to get the shine. And like you said, he's so not comfortable like being the man in front of the camera because there is no agency, there is no PR. Um, anyway, I could talk about him forever. You get the last word on Lamar, and then pick your brain on topic number two.
Yeah, no, I think just an ending point. It's just so much fun to, in he's changing the way the game is played in so many aspects, on and off the field, like we just talked about. Yeah, he's doing all these incredible things on the field. He's not a two-time MVP, but he's also done these things where he has represented himself, with his mom and gotten one of the biggest contracts in NFL history. And it's so cool to root for a guy who just was doubted so much and continues to prove everyone wrong in different ways.
Yep. So we can do plenty of Lamar talk. We'll figure out. I think we're now done with the Ravens until the draft. We're going to
Yeah.
find other things to talk about. So we'll put the Ravens on hold on a positive note. We'll do that. So topic two. All right. So conspiracy theories. One of these days we're going to do non-sports conspiracy theories and see like which ones I could get you to at least listen to. Because that's my philosophy on the conspiracy theory. I'm so open-minded that if you give me an elevator pitch within like 30 seconds,
Mm,
I'm open to
you might
almost
be wrong.
right to literally anything because I will not rule it out, but you have to give me a good 30-second elevator pitch. So here's my conspiracy theory from last night. I know I'm not the only one, but how much money was wagered on DeMar Hamlin to be the comeback player of the year? And how the hell
Yeah.
did Joe Flacco so make the argument? Let's not spend time on the conspiracy theory because I feel like that's obvious. So can you make a coherent argument for Joe Flacco winning the award?
I the entire year kind of half jokingly was like, oh, towards the end, it's like, oh, Joe Flacco's going to come and, he played for the Jets, he had to come back from that and all these jokes. And then it literally was one of those, I was watching the TV last night and they announced Joe Flacco and it was like a double take. It was like they read the wrong name. It was like it did not feel, and I will say my mind went exactly to where you said. I was like, there was a lot of money on DeMar Hamlin to win that award, and that was crazy. I did not see that coming at all.
So the best conspiracy theory, and so I said again, it's got to be a good 30-second elevator pitch. This one was not good enough, but I did see in the world of Twitter that the reason why DeMar Hamlin did not win is because it's really not DeMar Hamlin. This is, it hasn't been him this entire time, and it would get exposed if he was interviewed this time. To which, as much as I wanted to click on it, I'm really trying to discipline myself to be like, all right, you know what? There's certain things that I'm just not clicking on because it's like a car accident, right? Like, why is there traffic?
Yeah,
Because everybody has to watch the car accident. So that was a good one. The other good ones I saw were The NFL doesn't want attention to the fact that the vaccine actually kills people, so we don't want the
Oh,
marketing. That got a click. I'll be honest, that got a click. Not super proud of myself after the fact, but I did click it. And then what was the other one? Oh, this one wasn't really a conspiracy. This was more of like a reasoning. It's because of the fake punt, and it just it left a
oh
sour
yeah,
taste in everybody's mouth. But I guess the only thing I could come up with besides the gambling is um, they just didn't want attention on it anymore for whatever reason. But I don't know. I can't think of honestly a
I
good
really
reason. That's
don't.
why I asked you.
Yeah, no, I don't either, and that's what's so crazy about it, is just as much as it was like a funny thing throughout the year, like, oh, what if Baker Mayfield wins comeback player of the year
Right,
over a guy
right.
who's coming back from death, or oh, Joe Flacco, and then Joe Flacco wins it, and it did feel like there was almost in the air, like, really?
Do you know
Like,
what?
are we like it felt like people were looking around like in the crowd like, "Oh, okay, that just happened."
So this
So
happened
it
to me. So Sunday morning when they announced the playoffs for the NCAA championship, watching the betting, I'm like, oh my god, Alabama, because the line kept moving. It's like, oh, Alabama's going in. There's no other reason for it. It almost seemed like too good to be true, so I didn't bet on it. And then of course that happened. And I guess I don't know. Listen, there's gonna be so many sports betting stories. Did you watch the 60 Minutes thing the other day?
No, I did not.
There's just so this is just like going to explode. So when they made marijuana legal, it's not like all of a sudden
Mhm.
you're gonna read these horrible stories about like people just dying. Like it just like nothing
Yeah.
really felt like it changed. It feels like wasn't it already legal? I don't know. All my friends do it anyway. With sports betting, it feels like
Yeah.
I will not be surprised. Like, what was the last story? The Jaguars employee like somehow lost $20 million betting on FanDuel.
Yeah.
These stories are just going to be outrageous.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's go to. I wanted to talk about this. All right. Let me phrase it this way: forget the job openings. Just
Mhm.
forget like exactly what openings there were. Go with Belichick and Pete Carroll because I feel like it's the same business model. If you were an owner and you were going to hire one of them, not a general manager, an owner, right? If you're going to hire Belichick or Pete Carroll, it's a 4-year business plan, 5 years at the most, where you say, hey, win as many Super Bowls as you can, but also leave my franchise. Like, don't pull a LeBron on me. Like, when you leave,
Yeah.
can you leave some sort of stability because I'm going to rip up everything I have, let you do what you want, and then when you leave me something, right? So put you
Yeah.
on the spot with that being the thought. Now, general manager. All right, let me phrase it again
Mhm.
this way. So a general manager has no incentive to hire Belichick or Pete Carroll, just none,
Yeah.
because then they get the credit for it. I think that's pretty well understood. If they
Mhm.
right, so but an owner
Yeah.
is owner just wants to win. So walk me through which team, because the most obvious two teams to me were the Eagles and the Cowboys. That would say, oh,
Yeah.
we have a better chance to win the Super Bowl if I hired one of those two guys and let them run things for 4 years. Is there another team, whether you would have fired your head coach, whether it was a job opening, that you're like, hey, it would have just been great to let Belichick or Carroll, and which one would it have been?
I
Unable.
personally I would if I was hiring one, I would go Belichick just because of the now where it gets dicey is the can you leave the team with some stability when you leave? Because I'm not obviously we're seeing that in New England right now. I'm not sure how much stability he left there. Uh Teams off the top of my head,
Because let me,
honestly.
as you're thinking about it, the reason why the Falcons made no sense to me is because you're
Mhm.
not the Falcons. You have to have a veteran quarterback that you can win this year. So if you're going to a
Yeah.
team like Washington or Atlanta, you're basically asking Belichick, "Do you want Russell Wilson?" Right? Like we need to get a veteran because he's not going to win with the rookie quarterback. So that's why I was like, well, Philadelphia. Um, but I feel like the general manager there has all the power, so there's no way he wants Belichick in there. And for
Yeah,
whatever
I think
reason,
even maybe in Jacksonville, with Trevor Lawrence and
that
them,
would have
I
been a
could
good one.
see.
There you go.
Yeah,
Right. Belichick's
I
an
think
upgrade
that would
over.
probably be a good spot.
That would be a good one. But I understand why they didn't get the jobs because if you just look around, there's not too many spots. And if you think about the ego from the ownership, and I guess Jerry Jones has to win without it being Belichick's, seventh title.
Yeah, because if he wins with if Belichick goes to the Cowboys and wins, he gets all the credit. It's going to be, oh my gosh, Belichick went out and won with the Cowboys. He did all this. He's brought greatness back to Dallas, and no one would talk about Jerry Jones, and that's not what
Right.
Jerry Jones won.
I think like if you really break down like what teams there are, I feel like McDaniel has done such a great job in Miami. I think he's actually maxed out what they're doing. I don't think Belichick is the right fit down there. Ironically, the Jets would be like a good fit for him.
Yeah, very good fit, actually. That would be. I know, obviously, it would never happen because of division and stuff, but that probably would be the best, especially with Aaron Rodgers. You get probably a year or two left max with him. That would probably be the best spot for one of those two.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting thought process when you break down like the business of who makes these decisions. And the ownership group usually picks at least one or two people within the organization to make decisions.
Mhm.
And none of those
Yeah,
people want Pete Carroll or Belichick in the building. That's just that. They don't
yeah,
even
because
want
they
Meg.
because
I was gonna say they
as
don't
soon
even
as
want
they
and they don't want Vrabel in there for God knows what reason. I don't know if he like. Listen, I saw the story. He's like too big.
too
I
big.
don't. I kind of think that's. I mean, whatever. Maybe that's true, but I think the main reason is Vrabel's going to run the way he wants to run it, and obviously the guy in Tennessee, what's his name, Crawthorne, I think he won out with
Yeah,
ownership,
yeah, Ron
and
Carr. No,
so
I agree. I think that whole thing with Vrabel was crazy. I can't believe that they actually came out and said that or I guess NFL personnel said that he was too intimidating. It's like, do you see Dan Campbell running things in Detroit right now? I don't think, we can use the intimidation thing when we got guys like that running,
I
teams.
yeah, I genuinely think if he meant that, it's more of an excuse to not give up.
Without a
Everybody wants power. Everybody wants to make a decision. So anyway, let's go to all right. What I really wanted, the main part of I don't know. I guess I say this often because I don't know exactly who's listening each time. But the main point of us doing this show is, talk about some different
yeah,
things in a different way that maybe the rest of the people are talking about, and try to have some structure where we're only doing it Friday mornings um, to really cover whatever's important. We'll decide, frankly, a couple hours beforehand, see what happens the night before.
yeah,
So yes, I think sometimes we'll go longer. We'll kind of just play it by ear. But for today, I feel like I won't put a time limit on it. I don't know how much in the mood you are, but let's do a little bit Chiefs 49ers and get your thoughts on a couple things because everybody's going to bet on the game. So I think that's probably the obvious way to look at it. But I'd like to start here and just kind of give me your thoughts on this. The last time I remember a Super Bowl feeling this way was the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl. So I remember watching the AFC Championship that year, which was Patriots Broncos, and then NFC Championship Seahawks 49ers. Both games
yeah,
were both games were really close. And it was like, oh wow, there's a varsity game and there's a JV game. And like it's just obvious to me. I don't think it needed much more analysis. So then the line comes out and it's like, it's a 2-point spread or 2.5, whatever the hell it was. And I was like, am I missing something? It's like, I guess it's just Peyton Manning because the Seahawks are going to kill him. And I'm not saying that because the Seahawks killed him and I was right. I guess that is part of the reason I'm saying it. But anyway, I look at this and I'm like, wait a second. We are Ravens fans. I watched every snap, every single snap. And then I watched a lot. That's like they're not the same game. The 49ers, how can I go into Super Bowl week with the defensive coordinator being like, yeah, we just didn't give max effort on a lot of plays last week, but feel good about our chances. We'll make some adjustments. I think they're going to win 35-10 or 45-15. Like, I don't know how the 49ers can even compete in this game. Am I missing something? Please tell me if I'm missing something because I think I'm betting $10,000 on the Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs end up winning. I actually am gonna, if I like, my prediction is I think the 49ers win by 2 scores, just because I've said that against the Chiefs every round so far. And I have to just keep doing it, hoping that it happens at some point now. But I think, especially when you look at the quarterbacks, this does feel weird. This is,
Right.
this, well, I think especially in Baltimore it feels weird because you feel like we should be there. It should be us, not them. And the way that the 49ers looked against the Lions, especially the first half, it did not, it looked like the 49ers were going to run out of the building, run out of their own building. We had CJ Gardner Johnson waving fans goodbye in the second quarter. So there is a lot of concern. And I think if the 49ers fall behind early, I'm not sure I don't think they can come back like they did against the Lions on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I look at this and like I just do not see a pathway. So the pathway is, McCaffrey, the Niners will stick to running the football, and that's how, once they can run the football, things will go the right way. They're okay. Like I think the Chiefs rush defense, I think when you look at statistics for the overall year, and that's why the Niners are favored because every metric, but it takes away from the eye test, the old school, just watching the game. And with the NFL, it's really just the playoffs. Like you don't really need to watch the regular season. It just doesn't matter anymore. You just watch the last 2 or 3 games and like don't overthink it. Like my advice to everybody would be like don't overthink it. If you're taking the 49ers, I feel like you're trying to you're regurgitating a bunch of statistics at me and it's like, all right, I guess we'll find out, but
I think taking the four, I think a lot of people are on the 49ers because kind of what I just said. It's one of those things where it's like people just think Mahomes has to be stopped, and I just, especially this year, the way it's going, I sadly don't see it happening.
dude, the
I
Packers had
think,
guys. The Packers had guys that are just wide open. Like the Chiefs will finish the game. The problem with the Lions and the Packers, they could not finish the game. Those 3rd and 2.
yeah,
We said it last 2 weeks ago. We were doing the Ravens game. Like you make your money on 3rd down. Everybody in the NFL is amazing at football. That's how they got there. It's like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and Brandon Stevens is an effing inch away. Kyle Hamilton's an inch away. Like that's football. Like it just is what it is, right? But the Lions and the
yeah.
Packers have guys wide open. Like that was not 50-50 plays. The Niners just cannot cover. I feel like their energy is way off. I feel like, all right, so there's 2 things that are happening. One, I'm building up my confidence because it's about a 2.5 hour drive to the casino from where I am. And then I also feel like I need somebody to tell me something that I don't see because Kittle's banged up. The Niners' best players on the outside is the Chiefs' best players on the outside. Like the Niners receivers don't run better routes than Flowers and OBJ. I don't see a pathway for it, except the Tooney guy, whatever his effing name is. He keeps getting in the way and saying stupid things. I don't know if he's going to be activated. Talk about vibes. He seems like a little bit off, but dude, I just think the Chiefs are. It's annoying. It's going to be one of those things where at least Ravens fans will have that. We lost to the stupid Chiefs.
Yeah, it'll be the same thing with the Orioles. We lost to the champs. But I think it's going to be close. But like you said, what scares me about the 49ers is they, they've had to come back in all these playoff games and they've fallen behind and then had these big, playoff moments where they had to, snatch victory away from, defeat. And I don't think the Chiefs give up, like that. They're not going to, if the 49ers are down, 7 points in the second half, we saw what the Chiefs did to the Ravens. They're like, okay, we're just going to run the ball. We're going to do whatever. We don't care if we only get 2 yards a gain. We're going to waste
That
this clock. We're going to press this game and put pressure on you. And now we're making Brock Purdy feel like he needs to be throwing deep and they need to go win it all in one play. And that's where I think they're going to eventually, take the game.
So the one difference between our show versus I guess everybody else doing a podcast is I don't have any sort of technology skills. like literally none. So I don't even know how to show us like a clip and then ask us to comment on it. So I just came up with like, we'll just never do that. But with that being said, did you see the Warren Sapp Cam Newton interview by any chance?
Yes.
Where Warren
Yes.
Sapp like called him out for like not diving on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And which
so
is fantastic. That was incredible.
so they're having this game manager conversation. So just to give some context to people, they're having a game manager conversation, like who's your idea that Cam is classifying Purdy and Tua and Dak as whatchamacallit, as
Game manager.
yeah, as game managers, right? So then it leads to, well, wasn't Brad Johnson your quarterback a game manager when you guys won the Super Bowl? Which resulted in Warren Sapp just Cam Newton by saying something to the effect of, why didn't you got to see it for yourself. But he basically calls him out for not diving on the ground. And then Cam Newton feels like he's trying to hold his ground, but then at the same time, he clarifies. He's like, well, Tom Brady's the greatest game manager of all time. And then Warren Sapp is like, all right, fine. You want to call it, if you're going to say my guy Brad Johnson is a game manager, but Tom Brady's a game manager, sure. And I started thinking, fuck's a game manager, right? Like a game, it's the dumbest term. And we have some of these terms in our society where we just like, all right, we just keep it instead of analyzing like what it means. So I was like, I think Cam Newton wants to call it a game manager because that makes him feel better about his career. And it's like, just because you were unpredictable doesn't mean like whatever you want to. So being a game manager is incredibly stupid. It basically forces you to dumb down yourself and say, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And it's like, wait a second, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, can we talk about what a game manager means? If you mean, is it my job to win the game? Yes, and that means sometimes against the Ravens, we shouldn't throw the ball down the field because they have Kyle Hamilton and he seems to be on top of everybody. And my receivers don't create a lot of separation. And if they deflect one ball, this crowd's going to explode and we're going to lose because if we play 6 quarters, the Ravens will eventually beat us. Yes, I'll be an effing game manager. Kim is just killing me. Like this dumb commentary. And I think Brock Purdy is overrated. I think the Niners will lose by 30 points, but who would not be a game manager? Like, why would that be a good?
I think it's one of those things where I agree. I think because I agree with Cam a lot on the, some of his things, but I think game manager, like you said, it is a very dumbed down version of it because I agree. I think Purdy's in the same type of quarterback as like a Tom Brady, and just it's pretty much a way to say he's not going to beat you with your legs. I think game manager is pretty much that's the way. It's like the sneaky athletic, it's the new sneaky athletic. He's got you got to watch out because he's sneaky athletic. It's game manager is becoming just the new go-to word for he's not a mobile quarterback.
It kills me when there's so many fun things to talk about, so many interesting things to talk about. And as soon as you make the conversation where everybody's getting dumber, I'm just like, what are we even doing? Like, I don't even know who is not a game manager.
Days. That's what they get paid to do on ESPN. It's to argue about game manager.
I think that's why baseball ultimately, as we look, I'll do more Chief stuff. I'm not gonna I feel guilty somewhat continuing to like jump up and down about the Chiefs because you're like, listen, I don't really want to cheer on the Chiefs here, so I'm glad you're gonna bet on it, but can we move on? It feels like that's what you're saying as I'm staring at Oriole stuff in the background. So I'm gonna do that for you. But no, seriously, the baseball, it makes it so much easier to talk about baseball than football and basketball sometimes because you can stay away from like dumb conversations because there's so many different things to talk about. So let's do some Orioles and then we'll wrap up, get you out of here. I don't even know where to start. I want to go. There's 2 things I want to do. First, give me like our roster, like on not the pitchers. We're going to do the pitchers separately because I feel like spring training really matters more so for pitchers. There might be some injuries. The guy might need 7 days. Yeah, so it's a little tricky with that. But by and large, I think we know that Holiday is going to replace Frazier. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Does Kerstead
Yeah,
start?
I think Holiday, it's his job to lose. I think he's in one of those boats where if he really doesn't produce in spring training, they're not going to push him to the major league roster. But if he just continues to show what he's been showing, Michael Elias has
So
already
let's
said that there's openings for a left-handed hitting second baseman right now, playing time wise. I think that's kind of where we'll see Holiday to start.
all right. So let's do the easy stuff. Holiday comes in for Frazier, right?
Mhm.
What people remember, hit one extra roster spot for the playoffs. So like the
Yeah.
pre-playoff roster is where we need to go, right? You get 26, you get 13
Yep.
guys that are going to hit, 13 guys that are going to pitch. So Holiday comes in for Frazier, that's fine. Hicks is gone. That gives Kerstead that spot. That seems to be a seamless transition. Kerstead was on the playoff roster. Boom. Okay, great. Now Ryan McKenna doesn't make the roster. Colton Cowser doesn't make the roster.
Yeah.
Is that just the end of it? Like, does Mateo get shipped out of here? Talk to me.
It's going to be. I don't know what they're doing with Mateo right now, if I'm being honest. They're putting him in the outfield now, and I think it's just getting versatility to eventually. I I don't think they're gonna stick with him the whole season. I mean, I honestly didn't think they were gonna stick with him the whole season towards the end of last year. But he's gonna be one of those guys where the only way I see Mateo making this team is if he proves that without a shadow of a doubt that he can impact this team in a number of different ways in the field, and being that kind of replacement, defensive replacement late in games. I think that's where he's going to get the majority of his potential playing time. But if he struggles still in spring training, and you have other guys coming out here. The Orioles just picked up Nick Maton, and from the Tigers, and Levon Soto from the Angels, two left-handed hitting infielders. It's competition, and I don't see either of them cracking the team to make it out of camp. But Mateo's very up in the air for me because it all depends on, do they think he can actually help the team in the outfield? Because if he's not going to be in the outfield as well, they have a lot of good infielders, and that's not an issue the Orioles have. So it's going to make it harder for him to give a reason to stick around.
So Arias, Westberg, Gunnar, Jackson, Holiday got the infield locked down. Here's my you just said. I don't think it's really a Mateo thing. Like, and here's what I mean by that. So Mateo serves the purpose of having a right-handed bat in the outfield, or a
Yeah,
right-handed bat, period. So the logic to me is it's really between Mateo and McKenna as far as like that right-handed bat. However, we have no backup infielder if you don't put Mateo in there. So like even though he's not going to play very often, you do have situations where having just somebody on the roster in case of an emergency during the game, you need to have somebody that can play the infield. So in a hypothetical situation, if you did not have Mateo and you had McKenna, or you just had somebody else, Cowser, but not another infielder, and then you have a starting lineup that has Arias on the bench. So you got Westberg, Gunnar, and Jackson, right? And then it's like, oh crap, for something happened and maybe it was a pinch hit, pinch run, an injury. So to the infielder, so Arias takes that spot. And now we're in the 11th inning. Now for whatever reason, there's another emergency. You can't have a situation, you know how these guys think, where there's nobody
yeah,
on the team that can just play third base. Like we're playing now to argue against myself. I guess Mountcastle probably in a pinch could play second base or third base. But I
yeah,
do think that the logic that what Elias is going to do is keep Mateo on the roster. And I think McKenna becomes the odd guy out. As much as I hate that, I really like besides the drop, man, which ended up not mattering because we won the division. Oh, God, I just love McKenna. And then Cowser, dude, there's just like you can't put him on the roster because he's got to play every day, right? And there's just no spot
yeah.
for him.
Yeah, no, Cowser is going to be one of those guys where he's got to play. I don't think you bring him up to sit on the bench for 6 out of 7 days out of the week. I think with Mateo, it all comes down to if he proves with that he can play the outfield. Because if he, last year, it's pretty much sums up the entire Jorge Mateo experience. He goes out and robs a home run, and you're like, oh my God, Jorge, in center field is going to be electric. And then 2 innings later, he completely misplays a ball in center field that allows 2 runs to score. And you're like, okay, that's more like it. So I think it depends if they think he can actually play out there. I think he does take that and becomes a super utility guy.
I think the ideal situation for the Orioles is they're rolling in April, May, and June. Everything feels like just last year as far as the win loss, the vibes, everything's going great. Mateo is on the roster. McKenna's in AAA, gets to come up a couple of different times. And then you figure out, God forbid, whether it's an injury or one of Hayes or Mullins is not performing or Mountcast, something happens, and you can make the switch and you just tell Cowser and Norby and Mayo, it's just like tough love. It just is what it is. I don't think there's another way around it. Like, I don't think you have opening day and tell Orioles fans to come out here and be like, now's the time for all the prospects to start. It's like, no, I don't know which one of these guys is going to make it. But hell, you might not see any of them until 2025. So it just is what it is.
Yeah, because like you said, they're now in. This is now the window's open. Corbin Burns is here, and right now he's on a 1-year deal. So this is not a time to be like, okay, let's see. Let's bring up the prospects and let them struggle and let them just get it all out. It's like that was last year, and it worked out well for us. But now it's let's get the pieces around them. Let's see how this fits together and how we can go win it.
What type of sales guy are you versus vibes guy? And what kind of sales guy versus vibes guy do you think Kyle Bradish is? Because he gave Burns the number. Burns is going to make 200 if he pitches well this year, $200 million next year. But Bradish strikes me as the guy. You interviewed him. I feel like he didn't even ask for anything. I feel like it's just like, dude, you can have it.
Yeah, I don't even think because I think we actually asked Kyle why he switched to 39 originally because this will be his third straight year. Originally, it was 56, and he was just like, I don't know. I just didn't like 56. He was like, I just want a new number. So I don't think he was too attached to it. Yeah, I don't
And what
think
would
that at
Zach?
all.
How does Zach handle that text message from Corbin? Hey, dude, do you mind if we switch numbers? Do you have like a wish list? Do you start researching all the things he owns?
I'm not gonna lie. Al Bradish, I would know that that man's about to make $200 million, and I'm still got arbitration for a few years. I probably would have been like, man, there is a price tag on the number. We can make something happen.
So I think Burns is definitely going to start on opening day. I think that's the vibe, obviously.
Yeah.
You think Means gets the second one, so they go righty, lefty, righty? Because I feel like that would devastate me if I'm the Angels. I'm like, wait, how am I supposed to prepare for Burns, then Means, then his
Yeah.
nasty slider on game 3?
I think the bench. I think they're going to start out, and they're probably. I think to start, they're just going to throw out the top three with Bradish and Grayson
Oh,
as the
okay.
next. And because I think how it will end up being will be in order. Will be like a Burns, then Bradish, Grayson, Means, then Kramer. And I think obviously we're going to see how, like we said, spring training is important for pitchers. We're going to see, guys like Grayson might not be 100%, still ramping up. So they might give a guy
Right.
like John Means been there, done that, and, is more, he understands how to get ready for the season. I could see him getting the start on on day 3, just being like, okay, we know that you can go out there and are going to be ready.
Do you think a big reason that Elias was comfortable getting rid of DL Hall was Dylan Tate's return? Because Dylan Tate, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he amazing against lefties in
Yeah.
2022?
Yeah, no, Dylan Tate is one of those secret weapons that the Orioles have returning this year that not enough people are talking about. If he can be healthy, he
He
was one
seems
of
to be.
one of relievers in 2022.
So they got Tate, they got Cano, they got Kimbrel, but Tate can serve because now that you shipped out Hall, you really only have Perez and is it Perez or Perez? Because every announcer
I
does it
think,
different.
yeah, every single announcer says it different. And then the announcers will be talking to each other and they'll both say it differently.
So I go Perez because I feel like it's Perez, but I don't even know. Anyway, we got him and we got Coulomb, and that's really it. So Tate serves as going against the lefties if necessary. But yeah, shipping out, and then you got Cole Irvin as well. Most likely he'll make the roster. And then we don't even talk about this, but they got a handful of pitchers in the minors that are 24, 25. Do you have a couple minutes? You want to educate people on who
I
those
think
pitchers are?
I think the biggest guy that, he came up last year a few times and did well. Nick Vespi has just been one of my favorite pitchers of the past few years. And maybe it's the hair. I will say, maybe it's the incredible
Dude, he's
flow
had
he
a
has.
tough
But
run. You're an underdog guy. They would
yeah,
like bring him up, and if anybody's been to effing Norfolk, Virginia, like that's literally not a fun drive. And they keep sending him up and down, and then he won't even pitch. So I get it. Go ahead though.
yeah, no, and it was one of those things where there'd be even times they would bring him up for 3 games and he wouldn't pitch, and then they'd
Right.
send him back down. And it's like, well, okay, sorry, Nick. Like, and he would come out and struggle towards the end, but he was showing potential that he can be a dominant lefty pitcher in the major leagues. And I just hope he's one of those guys that, man, I hope just gets an opportunity back to actually contribute on the team and not just be riding the Norfolk bus up and down 3 times a month.
But besides him, there's a couple guys who haven't been brought up yet, right? Is it Povich or Pavich?
Yeah. So Chase McDermott and Cade Povich are two, I guess. So Cade is a lefty, Chase is a righty, and both guys were acquired in the 2022 deals at the deadline. And they are perfect examples of these guys that not many people are talking about. And it's not going to, they're not going to come up with all this fanfare. It won't be the Adley Rutschman announcement, and
Right.
there won't be the big crowds coming to see them. But those guys, Povich is an incredible strikeout pitcher. He's going to miss the bat. He's going to go
And
out
he
there and
came
get swing.
from, and he was the best piece we got because that was for Lopez, right?
Yes, yep. It was him and Cano. So
Dude, can you believe that? I mean, it's just amazing yeah. So I said this joking to you, I think last time, but if MLB changes the format, which frankly would be so much more entertaining, just play like double headers 3 times a week, the Orioles would win. We have got to have the best like 40-man roster. I mean, we have so many compared to everybody else. It's just we are so loaded in so many different ways. All right, cool. So we'll do. That was good. All right. The way I want to end, trying to have a little bit of structure. So the way I want to end each episode that we do is, it really hit me. First, I want to hear about your birthday. But as you're talking about your birthday, your post about, I guess how many followers you had last year versus this year. It's just cool. And I think people root for you for the obvious reason, like that I asked to work with you, which is, you're trying your best and you don't have any built-in advantages, right? Like you're just out here, don't know exactly what you're doing each day, but you're trying your best, right?
yeah, exactly. No,
So
there's not a lot. We talk about structure in the show, and that's kind of what I do in life. It's just there's not a lot of structure. I just get up and I'm like, here we go. We
So
gotta
what I
go.
want to do is use your newfound power, and hopefully you have more power as each episode comes. But you're a content guy, and you're not the only one trying to make it. You're not the only one doing different things, and I think it'd be cool for you, for me to
Yeah.
hear it, and for whoever's listening to be like, "Hey, this is a cool person on Twitter to check out." So after you tell us, because I do want to hear about your birthday, but I want to end each podcast with you doing the same thing for somebody that I'm sure people have done for you in the past, which is like, hey, I like following this guy and he has a lot less followers than me at the moment, or maybe he doesn't, for whatever reason, you just feel like it's somebody
Yeah.
that people should check out. And yeah, tell us about your birthday because not everybody knows what it's like to be 24. So go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, haven't done. I'll probably get into more antics for the birthday this weekend, but unfortunately, I did hit leg day on my birthday, which I don't know how that somehow lined up. I was like driving to the gym, having the internal conversation of like, I can do something else, right? And then I was like, it's my birthday, and I was like, you got to do it. It's one of those things. It's like the tests in life where you're just like, if you have to hit legs on your birthday, you have to hit legs on your birthday. Just that's how life goes sometimes. But I think person to follow on Twitter, guy that does a lot of great work for the Orioles, Jason Benowitz. Great guy. Talk to him a lot on Twitter. Going to be doing some stuff with him coming up soon for the Orioles. Just an all around. I think I'm positive this guy will not a negative bone in his body. He's just a great person to work with, great person to talk on Twitter. So he's someone that I've gotten the pleasure to grow close with over the past few months on Twitter.
Say his name one more time.
Jason Ben. I'm trying to think what his handle is. I believe it's just Jay Benowitz on Twitter.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm still trying to
Yeah.
figure out. I try not to consume so much content because I like having my own thoughts. But I like to find a couple of people where they can educate me. That's really how I found you. It's like, wait, who can tell me something? I really think the best thing about your Twitter is that I'm like, man, these highlights, it's like another 3-minute reel of like Devin Hester the other day. I'm like, dude, I remember, like, I'm watching a couple of those plays and I'm like, I remember where I was. Dude, he was so good. He was so fast.
And that's why I love doing that stuff. It's because it is the nostalgia of you look back, especially like the older things like the Devin Hester highlights, is you do sit back and you're like, I remember sitting down watching this game and he took this back. And they're just those moments where you sit there and you're like, holy shit, I remember that.
Exactly, man. All right, well, cool. This was fun. Yeah, we'll keep doing it, and we'll keep it not structured. We'll have a little bit at the end. I think it's just important to, kind of celebrate sometimes, especially you. I don't know how hard you are on yourself, but I think it's important sometimes to just take a step back, like you did on your birthday, and be like, "Damn, I'm on a roll here.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot, and good for you."
It is kind of crazy. You just, it is like you said, you just keep going. You just got to keep rolling. And then sometimes you look back and you realize you're like, crap, a lot further than we were before. So,
How much how much have you invested on Orioles tickets?
actually, so far I know I'm going to opening day. I'm yet to get a season plan. I know eventually I'm gonna have to just bite the bullet, but I'm one of those guys where I live in denial and I'm like, will I use the season plan? And then I end up still going to like 25 games a year, and it's just like I should have got a plan.
All right. Well, have a great weekend. Whatever you do, if it's appropriate, we'll hear about it next week. You dodged whatever you did. It was just pretty slick. So I don't know exactly what you're doing on your birthday. We know you did leg day. I'll get a little more details from you next week.
Yeah, no, hopefully we'll have more fun stories I can tell after the weekend.
All right, bro. Well, have a good one. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. And yeah, I'm going to say, man, go Chiefs. Don't be mad at me, but the Chiefs are going to kick their ass. At least go make some money on the Chiefs.
Yeah. Hey, we'll be back next week to break it down and have more fun.
All right. See you, bro.
See ya.